Grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Gang gremlins on the scene. 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 Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Gang gremlins coming, let's go.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
Let's see those team stickers flow. Gang gremlins on the scene. Now tap
Neither
that
have
screen.
entered the grotto.
Just see and says what
Now
choose.
tap that screen.
Just.cn.na have entered the grotto.
Gaga Grumps says hi there,
That
user.
screen.
Grumps says hello everybody. Grumps has entered the grotto.
Gang
Ash
gremlins
says
on the
hello
scene.
Gaga.
We would be honored if you would join
Gaga
us.
Grumps says Ash is in the house.
To the gang grotto. Welcome.
Ash on hands has entered the
To
grotto.
the game grotto. Welcome in, guys. Settle down.
Gaga Grumps says welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
It's your warm-up routine. Gang gremlins on the scene. Gang gremlins on the scene.
We would be honored if you
Gang
would join
gremlins on
us.
the scene.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily
Gang
heart, Ash.
gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Gang gremlins coming, let's go.
Gaga Grumps says hey Sienna, how goes
Tap
it?
it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow. Gang gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Gang gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Ash says what is your name Gaga, and Grumps. Only answer, if you don't mind.
FOFOSTAR has entered the grotto.
Fafa Star says loved.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. L.
Ash says I just like getting to know people.
Fafa Star says hi.
Fofstar says limit. Gaga Grumps says we just go by Gaga and Grumps online now. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Fafa Star says limit. Grumps says at FOFOSTAR hail. Ash says at Gaga and Grumps, no problem. My name is Aisling Ashley. It's Irish the dream.
Gaga Grumps says I love that name. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with L please Sienna.
Ash says thank you. Just See Na says limit.
Gaga Grumps says limit you got.
It's a Wordle wipeout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Lost in the grid, can't figure it out. Oh no.
Miller has entered the grotto.
Miller says punch.
Gaga Grumps says wouldn't be Wordle with Gaga without an opening wipeout.
Fafastar says cheap.
Gaga Grumps says punch fits. And hi Miller, didn't see you come in.
Miller says hi.
Gaga Grumps says nice pick. We end on NCH.
Fafastar says bench.
Gaga Grumps says bench works.
Fafastar says no tea.
Gaga Grumps says no change.
None of business has entered the grotto.
None of business 215 says Rancy J.
Fofastar says ranch.
Nonny Business to 15 says wrench.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says hey Nunny, nice to see you. Gaga Grumps says ranch fits. Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Eva.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Gaga is in the box. Don't let her loose. Grumps is on the buttons. Don't let him push you. Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Miller. Gaga Grumps says grab your daily heart while I set up the next board. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says it's down to the taps either. That's my format at the moments. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. E. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Race to the top like a thorn. Tap and don't stop like a thorn. Who will be crowned like a thorn? Gremlin renowned like a thorn. Fingers on fire like a thorn. Gremlins don't tire like a thorn.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Gremlins define.
Fafa Star says evict.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with E please Eva. C.
Fufferstar says epoxy.
Gaga grumps, says Earth you got. Gaga grumps, says a yellow H in need of a home. Gaga grumps, says no E for house. Gaga grumps, says chom fits. Gaga grumps, says H lives at number 2 Wordle Street. Gaga grumps, says I try. Gaga grumps, says shill fits. Gaga grumps, says we added a green S and L. Gaga grumps, says an L needs to be fourth.
IDK Bruhimre has entered the grotto.
Bruhimre says skull.
Gaga grumps, says H needs to be second. Gaga grumps, says hi IDK.
Alexa has entered the grotto.
Alexa says no.
Gaga grumps, says no what? Gaga grumps, says I have no idea what this is. Gaga grumps, says is shulk a word?
Bruhimre says shulk.
Abyss says shyly.
Abyss says shyly.
Gaga grumps says shyly.
It Bruhumray says shoals.
Gaga grumps says got there too Abyss. Abyss says go shyly. Gaga grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Good game. Good game.
Abyss says we.
A random star chosen by fate. Play a part, it's a live date. A Wordle with Gaga. A Wordle with Gaga. Ra-da-da. A Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says can you beat me at Wordle? Check out my daily posts and share your results with me.
Only in three, a pretty sky.
Gaga grumps says grab your daily heart while I set up the next tour.
Wordle with Gaga. Da-da-da.
Grump says it John Hay.
Gaga grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart. Gaga grumps says let's play Wordle.
It Bruhumray says I do.
Gaga grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Libs has entered the grotto. Libs has entered the grotto. Grump says at Libs hi there.
Gaga grumps says we are starting with A. P.
It Bruhumray says plank.
Gaga grumps says welcome back Libs, did you tap yourself out? Gaga grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
It Bruhumray says plank.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire, like a thon. Gremlins don't tire, like a thon. Hearts be flying, like a thon.
Gaga grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga grumps says your word starting with P please Libs. Gaga grumps says Peach you got. Gaga grumps says a yellow A in need of a new home.
It Bruhimray says salty.
Farfastar says amity.
Gaga grumps says salty fits. Gaga grumps says alives at number 2 WRDLE Street.
Ash says radio.
Gaga grumps says radio fits. Gaga grumps says an O moved into number 5.
Ash says mango.
Gaga grumps says mango works.
Ash says sorry.
It Bruhimray says kazoo.
Gaga grumps says it was what I would have done.
It Bruhimray says kazoo.
Welcome, Gremlins, to the Game Grotto. Welcome, Gremlins, to the Game Grotto. Welcome in, guys. Settle down. Grab your heartbeat.
Gaga grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Good game.
Game Gremlins on the scene.
Good game.
Game Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga grumps says welcome Gremlins to the Game Grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Game Gremlins, come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow.
Gaga grumps says do the Gaga. Share the LIVE, chat the chat and shower her with roses and GGs.
Now tap that screen.
Grumps says treasure box is open.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says Shy is in the house.
Now tap that screen.
Jay has entered the grotto.
Jay says help all.
Gang gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says what now? Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
She says Maisie is going no point to for the first time since Monday. I sense a blowout in progress.
Grumps says Q of course.
It Bruhimray says it's gonna choose P.
Gaga Grumps says TMI Shy. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. H. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned.
Jay says do you might try smelling it?
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says the joys of having no sense of smell.
Jay says every time I think it's safe and go to get up and change her, she starts straining again.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with H please IDK.
It Bruhimray says happy.
Gaga Grumps says happy you got.
It Bruhimray says happy.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Lost in the grid, can't figure it out. Oh no.
Gaga Grumps
We
says
would
line
be
of
honored
hits.
if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says nearly a double. Yellow R in need of a new home.
It Brew Himray says truck.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart shy. Gaga Grumps says truck works. Gaga Grumps says R lives at number 2, T needs a new home. Gaga Grumps says needs AT.
It Brew Himray says frost.
Gaga Grumps says no H. Gaga Grumps says Frostworks.
It Brew Himray says frost.
It's playtime! Gaga is in the box! Don't let her lose! Grumps is
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly!
Good game. Good game.
Which team are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps, are you steady?
Gaga Grumps says thanks for following IDK.
Gremlins, let's go! Team Gaga, Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready?
Gaga Grumps says do the do for Gaga. Share the LIVE, chat the chat and shower her with roses and GGs.
Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Gaga Grumps says grab your daily heart while I set up the next wall. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. J. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Grumps says at Ash Hard Hands, welcome back.
Like a thorn, race to the top. Like a thorn, tap and don't stop. Like a thorn, who will be crowned? Like a thorn, gremlin renowned. Like a thorn, fingers on fire. Like a thorn, gremlins don't tire. Like a thorn, hearts beat flying. Like a thorn.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with J, please IDK.
It Himray says Jesse.
Gaga Grumps says Jazzy you got.
Chase says, I survived.
Gaga Grumps says a yellow A in need of a new home.
It Himray says alive.
Gaga Grumps says oh come on Maisie, you can do better than that.
Ash says abuse. It Himray says alive.
Gaga Grumps says alive fits.
Wonder, Wordle,
Wonder,
Wordle
Wordle says stare.
Gaga Grumps says no L for plain.
It Himray says place.
Gaga Grumps says hey Wandle, nice to see you.
Ash says grace.
Gaga Grumps says stairworks.
It Himray says trace.
Wordle says grape.
It Himray says brace.
It Himray says brace.
Gaga Grumps says alives at number 3, are looking for somewhere to live. Gaga Grumps says brace fits. Gaga Grumps says hi Jensen, nice to see you. Gaga Grumps says are homed, C lives at number 1.
It Himray says grace.
Gaga Grumps says there is no Z. Gaga Grumps says must be crane.
It Bruhimre says crane.
It Bruhimre says it's crane.
Jensen has entered the grotto.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Wordle with Gaga, will the fireworks fly? A random star chosen by fate, play a part, it's a live date. Wordle with Gaga, Wordle with Gaga,
Gaga Grumps says can you beat me at Wordle? Check out my daily posts and share your results with me. Gaga Grumps says grab your daily heart while I set up the next board.
It's do or die, only in 3. A pretty sky. A Wordle with Gaga. A Wordle with Gaga. Da da da. A Wordle with Gaga. Ra
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Samrat has entered the grotto.
Samrat says bless you.
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. Oh. Gaga Grumps says hey there Samrat. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Samrat says it Gaga and Grumps hey.
like a thumb, race to the top like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned like a thon. Fingers on fire like a thon. Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts be flying like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with O please IDK.
Bruhimray says ocean.
Gaga grumps says ocean you got.
Samrat says likes to fiery like Athen race to the top like Athen tapping done stop.
It Bruhimray says earth.
Holly Wheeler has entered the grotto.
Holly Wheeler says vague.
Gaga grumps says yellow E and are in need of homes.
Grumps says at Samrat hello there.
Gaga grumps says hey there Holly.
It Bruhimray says earth.
Grumps says at Holly Wheeler hi.
Gaga grumps says vague fits.
Grumps says treasure box is open.
It Bruhimray says grape.
Gaga grumps says A and E live at 2 and 5.
It Bruhimray says plate.
Gaga grumps says can't be grape or plate. Gaga grumps says A is second.
It Bruhimray says paste.
Gaga grumps says paste fits.
It Bruhimray says taste.
It Bruhimray says waste.
Gaga grumps says let's check for a filter.
It Bruhimray says white filler.
Gaga grumps says okay 4 options.
It Bruhimray says white filler.
Gaga grumps says is there one with the B cause the T will be green anyway.
JD has entered the grotto.
JD says waste.
Gaga grumps
Carly
says we
has
know
entered the
JD we
grotto.
need a filter.
Carly says white.
Carly says white is good.
Dream has entered the grotto.
Dream says oops, sassy and sorry.
It Bruham Ray says knew it.
Gaga Grumps says taste it is. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Welcome in, guys. Settle down. Grab your heartbeat. Share us round. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it. Tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. It's your warm-up routine. Gang Gremlins on the scene. Gang Gremlins on the scene. Gang Gremlins on the scene. Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says do the do for Gaga. Share the LIDE, chat the chat and shower her with roses and GGs.
Tap it, tap it, tap that screen, yeah, tap it, tap it. Gang Gremlins, come and let's go. Now tap that screen, tap it, tap that screen, yeah, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow. Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says can you beat me at Wordle? Check out my daily posts and share your results with me.
Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. P. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thumb, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire, like a thon. Gremlins don't tire, like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Gremlins define.
It Bruham Ray says paste.
Grumps says at timer high.
It Brew Himray says paste.
It Brew Himray says paste.
Grumps says tech issue sorted. Welcome back, Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says sorry guys, got an inactivity puzzle piece and couldn't do it with my shaky hands.
It Brew Himray says paste.
Gaga Grumps says paste you got. Gaga Grumps says thanks for sticking with me. Gaga Grumps says yellow T and E in need of homes.
It Brew Himray says truce.
Gaga Grumps says no S and won't be plural.
IDK Brew Himray says enter.
Gaga Grumps says enter fits and checks 2 places for the E. Gaga Grumps says E lives at number 4, T still homeless.
Grumps says at Abyss welcome back.
Abyss says fillet.
Abyss says at Grumps hey.
Gaga Grumps says fillet works. Gaga Grumps says and we end in E.T. goes home.
It Himray says comet.
Gaga Grumps says comet fits. Gaga Grumps says and we start with CO.
Abyss says cove.
Gaga Grumps says covert fits.
It Himray says it's covet.
It's playtime! Gaga is in the box! Don't let her lose! Grumps is on the buttons!
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly!
Someone has entered the grotto.
Which team are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps, are you steady? Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go! Team Gaga, 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 Gaga.
Grumps says it's summer high. Welcome back.
Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps, are you steady? Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily art.
Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Gaga Grumps says grab your daily heart while I set up the next wall.
Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Summer says at Grumps hey X.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. E. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Abyss says event.
Like a thorn, race to the top. Like a thorn, tap and don't stop. Like a thorn, who will be crowned? Like a thorn, gremlin renowned. Like a thorn, fingers on fire. Like a thorn, gremlins don't tire. Like a thorn, hearts beat flying. Like a thorn, gremlins defy.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with E, please, Summer.
Summer says Earth.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Summer. Gaga Grumps says Earth you got. Gaga Grumps says yellow are and they're in need of homes.
Just seen Nas says Parks.
Abyss says polar.
Gaga Grumps says no plural Sienna. IDK Bruhimre says Bala. Gaga Grumps says polar fits. Gaga Grumps says no change.
Just seen Nas says Prake.
Just seen now says Ips no P.
Gaga Grumps says what is Prake? Gaga Grumps says that too.
Abyss says frame.
Summer says grass.
Just seen No says I actually have no idea.
Gaga Grumps says no E for frame. Gaga Grumps says grass fits. Gaga Grumps says GRA all green.
Summer says, are you joking?
And Bruhimre says grand.
Just seen Nas says grain.
It Bruhimre says grand.
Gaga grumps says grain fits. IDK Brewhimray says it's grand. Gaga grumps says grand still fits.
Id Brewhimray says grand.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Will the fireworks fly? A random star chosen by fate. Play a part, it's a live date. Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says I haven't had any fireworks yet. Gaga grumps says can you beat me at Wordle? Check out my daily posts and share your results with me.
Good game. It's do or die. Good game. Only in three. A pretty sky. Good game.
Gaga grumps says grab your daily heart while I set up the next ball.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says Q, of course.
Gaga grumps says we are starting with A. L. Gaga grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thumb, race to the top. Like a thon, tap and don't stop. Like a thon, who will be crowned? Like a thon, gremlin renowned. Like a thon, fingers on fire. Like a thon, gremlins don't tire. Like a thon, hearts be flying. Like a thon, gremlins defying.
Gaga grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga grumps says your word starting with L, please, Summer.
Summer says lousy. Is that how you spell it?
Gaga grumps says lousy you got. Yep. Gaga Grumps says O lives at number 2 Wordle Street.
Summer says comic.
NUFC Life has entered the grotto.
NUFC for LIFE says coned.
Just seen no says torch.
Gaga Grumps says hey NUFC, nice to see you. Gaga Grumps says comic fits.
NUFC for Life says it Gaga and Grumps you two as always.
Gaga Grumps says and it gave us nothing but eliminations.
Just say no says Tower.
Gaga Grumps says Tower works.
NUFC for LIFE says hoped.
Gaga Grumps says an E moved into number 4, R is homeless.
Yohali has entered the grotto.
Says corn.
Joe Halley says oops, I sent it accidentally. Just seen now says bored.
Gaga Grumps says no problemo. Hi Yohali. Gaga Grumps says board fits.
Joe Halley says roaded.
Gaga Grumps says we added AD, R must live at 1, and D at 3.
3 is says rodeo.
Sunny Pivots
says dozer. Summer says rodeo.
Just seen Na says roaded.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Yohal.
Joe Halley says road.
Gaga Grumps says rodeo it must be.
Welcome, Gremlins, to the Game Grotto. Welcome, Gremlins, to the Game Grotto.
Welcome in, guys. Settle down.
Gaga Grumps says let's see those doubles in chat.
Now tap that screen, tap it, tap it, tap that screen, yeah, tap it, tap it. It's your warm-up routine. Game Gremlins on the scene. Game Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart.
Game Gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen, tap it, tap it.
Catalina Catalina999 says, hello you guys, I hope you're having a great day too.
Gaga Grumps says in for the go for.
Let's see those team stickers flow. Gang gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen.
Grumps says at Catalina Wing, hey, welcome back.
Gaga Grumps says the leader protect gremlins to take a day off lol.
Gang gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart. Treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says grab your daily heart while I set up the next board.
Catalina999 says what is treasure box?
Has entered the grotto.
Hope Pet says, hey y'all.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
PH has entered the grotto.
Gaga Grumps says hey Hope. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says at Catalina Wing it shows up at the top left corner and gives you free coins if you tap it.
Just CNNA says at Catalina Wing treasure box is a feature that gives you free coins to buy gifts. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. I.
Catalina 999 says, oh, I've never seen it.
Grumps says at Catalina Wing it may not show, depending on your age.
Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Race to the top like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon?
Gaga Grumps says hey PH7 didn't see coming.
Fingers on fire like a thon. Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts beat flying like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Grumps says at Catalina Wing it may, I do not know, also depend on how the laws are where you live. Shireen Curly has entered the grotto.
Catalina 999 says it makes sense.
Grumps says at Catalina Wing right now it's showing and is ready to collect.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with I please Catalina.
Catalina 999 says, can you do ideal pulls?
Gaga Grumps says ideal you got.
PH7 says quest.
Gaga Grumps says E lives at number 3 Wordle Street.
Hobeck says queen.
Shireen Curley says press.
Gaga Grumps says quest fits. Just CNNA says read.
Catalina 999 says cheat.
Gaga Grumps says hi Shireen, welcome. Just CNNA says woos.
PH7 says guest.
Shireen Curley says guest.
Catalina 999 says guest.
Hope BTC says guest.
Gaga Grumps says niece guest PH7.
Just seen Na says guest.
Grumps says at Catalina Wing it doesn't guarantee an amount of coins, so may be classed as gambling where you are.
Gaga Grumps says guest it must be.
Catalina 999 says, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, no, it doesn't show up for me. And I know they're strict with that where I am.
Gaga Grumps says give Gaga and
Fireworks for
PH7
Gaga.
her fireworks.
It's a performance in it. Explode 'em on her face. She's in a
Gaga
happy
Grumps says
place.
Wordle in 3.
Fireworks for
Let's see
Gaga.
those fireworks. Gifts and emojis will explode on Gaga's
Explode
face.
with glee. Fireworks for Gaga.
.HOPBTC says go team.
As in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. From a single rose to a whole bouquet. Anything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smileys in chat still win the day. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga.
Good game. Good game.
Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says grab you daily heart while I set up the next board.
Era R has entered the
Gaga
grotto.
Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Error R says Halo.
Grumps says Q. I demand my Q.
Gaga Grumps says AV for Vera, how goes it?
Error says voids.
Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Hero R says at Gaga and Grumps, haha.
Like a thon, race to the top, like a thon, tap and don't stop, like a thon, who will be crowned, like a thon, gremlin renowned, like a thon, fingers on fire, like a thon, gremlins don't tire, like a thon, hearts beat
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Just like heart,
Jess says voice.
Gaga Grumps says hey Jess, nice to see you.
Jess says voice.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with V, please Sienna.
Just seen now says Venus.
Gaga Grumps says Venus you got. Gaga Grumps says a green you in need of neighbors.
PH7 says about
Gaga Grumps says about Fitz.
fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says fireworks for PH7 the Wordle in 2 gold.
Explode 'em on her face, she's in a happy place. Fireworks for Gaga. Wordle within 3, so gifts explode with glee. Fireworks for Gaga. Emojis make her happy, as in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. From a single rose to a whole bouquet.
Grumps says at PH7 good call.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says grab you daily heart while I set up the next board. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says now gimme my cue.
Justino says I demand my A.
Error says my hand hurts from tapping.
Gaga Grumps says I'm sorry Vera, not hee.
Grumps says that ain't no cue.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. E. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned.
Dead grass has entered the grotto.
Dead Grass says hi Gaga and Grumps.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Grumps says at Dead Grass welcome back.
Gaga Grumps says Dead Grass is in the house. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Dead Grass. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with E please Shireen. Shireen Curly says Ember. Gaga Grumps says Ember you got.
Shireen Curly says right.
Gaga Grumps says a yellow R in need of a new home.
Just Seen Now says Rames.
Gaga Grumps says right fits. Gaga Grumps says T lives at number 5, R still homeless.
Just Seen Now says treat.
Dead Grass says court.
Gaga Grumps says no E. Gaga Grumps says court works. Gaga Grumps says we added a homeless C.
Gabby has entered the grotto.
Gabby says at Gaga and Grumps. Just seen Nah says tracked.
Gaga Grumps says hey there Gabby.
Gabby says tracked.
Gaga Grumps says tracked it must be.
It's playtime! Gaga is in the box! Don't let her lose! Grumps is on the buttons!
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly! Which team are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps, are you
Gaga Grumps says leave a do to Gaga. Share the LIVE, chat the chat and shower her with roses and GGs. Gaga Grumps says grab me day hard while I set up the next board.
Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Gabby says at Grumps.
I has entered the grotto.
Ball says what's the point with this?
Just CNNA says at Gaga and Grumps. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Just seen Na says at Iyer.
Gabby says train.
Gabby says train maybe.
Gaga Grumps says it's a logic word puzzle. I 5-letter word. 6 guesses. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Just seen Na says can we have a Grumps face reveal?
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. V.
Gabby says Viper.
Gaga Grumps says that will be a huge no pitch is allergic to cameras. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Just seen Nah says Hyla K.
Gabby says Viper.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with V, please, Shireen.
Shireen Curly says Viper.
Gaga Grumps says Viper you got. Summer says how long you gonna be live for X? Gaga Grumps says 8 more minutes.
Shireen Curly says River.
Just seen Nas says liked.
Some says okay.
Just seen Nas says like her.
PH7 says Dinah.
Gaga Grumps says IE and R moved into Wordle Street.
Jelly has entered the grotto.
Summer says Maya.
Thanks for the follow.
Jelly says Riser.
Just see Nas says like her.
Deadgrass says minor.
Mia has entered the grotto.
Summer says minor.
Gaga Grumps says let's throw a big ol' filter to get over the trap.
Jay says, wow, that was a lucky first word.
Ma says cider.
TH7 says rhyme filler.
Just seen Nas says like her.
Deadgrass says stalk filler.
Gaga Grumps says wow, just wow.
PH7 says Dinah.
Shireen Curly says finer.
PH7 says R isn't first.
Gaga Grumps says sorry, forgot to confirm it with you, lol.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Good game. Good game. Good game. Good game.
Christopher Marvin has entered the grotto.
Good game. Good game. Good game. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says can you beat me at Wordle?
Good game.
Check out my daily posts and share your results with me. Gaga Grumps says thanks for the GG show.
Pretty sky. A Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says and I still don't have a level up song because he didn't remind me to make one.
Jay says oops.
Gaga Grumps says let me bring up the last grid of the day. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says you're grounded. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Chase says, goody, can I go to bed?
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. M. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon, tap and don't stop, like a thon, who will be crowned like a thon, gremlin renowned, like a thon, fingers on fire, like a thon, gremlins
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
flying like a thon, gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with M, please, Deadgrass.
Deadgrass says magic, please.
Gaga Grumps says magic you got. Gaga Grumps says a yellow A in need of a home.
Deadgrass says brave.
Gaga Grumps says brave fits. Gaga Grumps says we added a yellow R. Dead Grass says spray. Gaga Grumps says spray works. Gaga Grumps says all three green.
Chase says straw.
Gaga Grumps says Starry Fits. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the
Good
chat.
game.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for joining me to play Wordle. I will be back at 4 PM UK tomorrow for more Wordle with Gaga.
Leave it into the grotto.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Will the fireworks
Dead Grass says thank you for the games, Gaga. Have a lovely evening.
a random star chosen by
Gaga Grumps says can you beat me at Wordle? Check out my daily posts and share your results with me.
fate?